I've got another guest in front of me right now. His name is Gareth, and well, it's wrestling, which sort of throws me a little bit. We'll come to that because I don't know much. But just tell us a little bit. What is it you're doing here?
So I'm here with Kingdom Wrestling, which is a charity based out of Yorkshire, and we do evangelistic Christian wrestling events for churches across the country. We've been coming to the gathering since 2018, and every year we bring a ring. We have that outside. We do some training sessions, let the lads get in between the ropes and feel what it's like to get body slammed and take a clothesline, and just get some of that frustration out of their system, and then learn some of the tricks of the trade and have a newfound respect for the art that is pro wrestling.
Fab. So I would assume, I'm going to put this out there, that you had wrestling in your background, that God sort of got involved in that somewhere, and now you're doing what you do. Just give us a bit of an overview of how it is you're now doing this, based on whatever you used to do.
So I had a rubbish childhood, and wrestling was my escape. So I would watch WWF and WCW with my grandmother on a Friday night. She was like a Macho Man fan, and I was like Rock and Austin. You know, they were my guys. And me and my grand, we bonded over wrestling. And then when I was homeless at 15, went through some debt and ended up in a hostel, slept in a skip, got my life back on track. I was invited to church, became a Christian, and felt totally moved in the worship, felt God's love in the worship. And then I found a wrestling school not long after. And then I started training how to be a wrestler while also learning how to be a follower of Christ. And both of those things evolved alongside each other. And what then became a release then became a passion. And then God challenged me on, well, where am I in this? And I was like, oh. So I changed my character to become a Christian wrestling character. So I became Gareth Angel, the Divine Avenger. And I would quote scripture in my promos and pray for my opponents. Before I knew it, I'm now pastoring a gaggle of pro wrestlers. And then I'm like, well, what do we do now? And God's like, share your story. So I then started putting my testimony smack bang in the middle of a wrestling show. And we're getting hundreds of people from the local community coming in because they want to see wrestling. And then they hear Jesus' power in my life and turning it around. And then people started getting saved. And then we were like, well, now what do we do? And then we set up a wrestling church. And so we have got baptisms happening right next to body slams. And we've got the bishop showing up and worship and word and wrestling. And then we're unpacking Bible stories and doing David and Goliath in the ring. And then we're just doing a sermon on the back of it. And then that got coverage on BBC and Sky. And then we're like, all these people started coming to us and going, we want to learn, we want to do it. Can you come to our church? Can you come to our men's breakfast? We're getting invited into schools, doing like inspirational talks. And it's just all kicking off. And so Kingdom Wrestling became a charity this past December. And we're now touring the country. We've got multiple sites set up. We're doing amazing stuff. And God is at work. We baptized 30 people last year. And that's incredible. And these guys are coming to events like this, and they're meeting Jesus and meeting other Christians, and they're now walking. We're being discipled. We're doing Bible study together. And it's just amazing, man. God is so good.
I want to come back to the Gram because when I was involved in children's ministry, older folk would come along and say, look, I'm a grandparent. I don't know. Well, my children aren't interested in church or Christianity. I've got grandchildren who I get to have some influence in. What can I possibly do? And I would always say the same, look, if you're the grandparent, pray for your grandchildren. But I love the fact we got the fact here, we've got a testimony, a story. You can't refute it. Your gran was involved in somehow changing your life because she actually tried.
I mean, I know my nan prayed for me. You know, I know she did. I heard her praying for me. You know, and she knew what was going on at home, and she knew to take me away from that every Friday night was an escape, but it was a chance for her to invest in me. She bought me books on bugs and dinosaurs and the human body, and she watched the wrestling because she saw I enjoyed it and just wanted to give me a childhood. Because at home, I was looking after my two younger brothers. My mum was an alcoholic. My dad was absent. And I was being abused by an older family member, like sexually abused. So like, she knew all that was going on. And she's like, let me just love you one night a week and give you a childhood. And that stuck with me. Even to her final days when she was, you know, she had dementia, I was still the one person she remembered out of the whole family whenever I came around. And she had a thick wash accent. She'd be like, Gareth, who are all these nurses? And I'm like, oh, that's your children, Gran. And she'd be like, oh, I don't know why they're here. And I was like, well, because they love you. And she was like, are you still praying? Are you still going to church? And I'm like, yes, I am, Nan. She was just so happy for me. But that grandmother, she was my mum. She was a strong woman. And she still had more pictures of Mary in her house than her own children because she was a devout Catholic. But hey, she prayed, and I knew she prayed. And that was enough. And for her to be present, and I say this to to people who are mentoring younger guys and some of the people that we have, you just showing up is enough. You just being present and having your life on the line for them and saying, hey, I'm here for you. My door is open. My phone is on. You need me. You call, you text, because so many people out there are lonely. So many people out there don't know where to go or who's for them and who's with them. And that's why you end up with people drinking. That's why you end up with people getting in with the wrong crowds, because the wrong people are showing up. She needed to show up for me because nobody else was. And I'll hold anyone to that. And that's why I show up for my guys now. And that's why I've got guys here who've just come over to me and said, hey, because of you, I'm now in a church where I am, because of you and your story. And I'm like, that's what Jesus does. That's why we share our stories, and that's why we show up, so Jesus can be there.
And our stories, they matter. I had this conversation a few times with people recently, and the one thing about a testimony, about our story, people may be able to question it, they may criticize it, they may judge it, but here's the reality about our testimony: they can't say it's not true.
No.
Because in reality, that is our story. And that's why it's so powerful and so important that as believers in Jesus Christ, we don't just have a story, but we're actually willing to share it with others as well. So thank you for sharing part of yours.
Yeah.
I could sit and chat to all the people I've spoken to for hours, but I'm trying to get as many people in front of a microphone today. So thank you so much. How do people find out more about you?
Yeah, so if they go to kingdomwrestling.org, that's our website. We're on all the social media platforms. Just search at Kingdom Wrestling UK. You'll find us. All of our details are on there, so maybe how you can support us, or you can book us, or you can find out what we're doing. It's all on there.
Fabulous. Gareth, thank you so much. It's been a thrill.